I'm glad we're getting together again. I know you know Theresa professionally. You interviewed her back when we were both in news, but on a personal level, Theresa is this incredible woman, an example of always speaking up for yourself. And I was watching this podcast to talk about having audacity as women, that, you know, just, we don't realize we have these things, these subconscious programmings that we default to. I certainly did. You know, we talked about this beforehand, and you were raised by a very strong dad who had only daughters, but we're going to explore all of this because it's fascinating conversation.
It is, and also how women can help each other.
That's right.
By simple acts of kindness. Small ones.
Small ones.
And, you know, we were talking earlier, but when you're kind of on the edge and you're not mainstream, and somebody goes, hey, come sit and have lunch with me. Or, hey, let's do homework together. Some smallest act of kindness can be so memorable and so important. And you remember that long after you've forgotten about the meanies.
Oh, yeah.
The nice ones stick out longer than the meanies.
That's right.
So
I'm excited to have this discussion. It's so critical. We'll probably need to do more of it.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us.
I was very excited too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.
First is Theresa Caballero. For those who don't know her, she's a criminal defense attorney in solo practice, which matters. But one of the things that I've always admired about you is that you speak and you raise your hand and say what you need to say when other people are afraid. And talk to me about that.
Well, first of all, I want to pay the compliment back to you, because the way we met was I was a person by myself, a woman, and I was very much attacked for being a woman, speaking about what I was speaking about. I was called a unfilial. I was called all kinds of names for speaking out about something that was going on in my community. And you were one of the few reporters who didn't go along with the pack, because I was also attacked by the press. And you reached out to me, you interviewed me, you were nice to me, you didn't do the playground thing. Oh, look, nobody likes Theresa, we're not gonna play with her. And that's how people are ostracized. But we were talking about before the camera started rolling is, why do we monitor ourselves when our better instinct is saying, well, this is wrong, or this needs to be changed, or this can be better? Why are we deferring to the bigger voice or the men in the room?
How did you pick how you were going to combat what you were feeling at the moment?
Well, I think that you just, well, first of all, you do something and then there's backlash that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
You're like, what am I doing that's so horrible? And there was a female component to it. And I was attacked for speaking out against, well, a patriarchy. And I'm like, well, I think I can either shut up or I can just keep speaking out.
That's right.
And I chose to keep speaking out. And then that made more people angry. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of getting worse. But I just kept doing it until it actually culminated in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
And so then some things calmed down because they saw that I was going to go forward. And by the way, I had the help of a female lawyer, a very seasoned lawyer who was like the only lawyer in town, female lawyer like her and one other person for years and years and years. And she came up to me and she said, I'm going to help you.
Wow.
And
she knows what you've gone through.
Yes. And she filed a lawsuit, and then next thing you know, they're like, oh, well, this has got a little bit of a bite to it. But I want to mention this, because we were talking about this before, you have to go through something really horrible.
That's right.
To become what you need to be. It doesn't just happen.
That's right.
And so I became a better lawyer, as a matter of fact, because I was standing up for myself.
That's right.
So when you can stand up for yourself, it's easier for you to stand up also for somebody else. So But I had to make a choice.
You brought up so many great points because I can identify. I mean, your background's in the courtroom, and we were, in news media, but we face the same things. And you know what I'm talking about, Karina, because I've known you. We have the same battles, and I'm not men bashing, pero a veces
sometimes you have to put your foot down and speak up.
And I was afraid to for a long time. It's like you nailed it. I don't know why. Why do we have that fear? Why?
Who said? Did somebody say don't say anything? Or did somebody say, oh, just do what the men say or do what the bigger voice said? No, nobody told us those things. So where does that come from?
I had no mention names, but I had a male co-anchor that was a bully. And we were talking about this before, and I stayed quiet until I set a boundary. But I really had to make a decision, and it took getting outside myself. And I was already in my, I wasn't a 20-year-old.
Did it entail a lawsuit?
Yeah, yes, it did.
Well, now 2 lawsuits at the table. Any lawsuits?
No, I have not been involved in a situation like that, but I, heard different stories. So
Because those newsrooms are rough.
it was interesting to me to be able to talk with women about their own personal experiences.
Yes.
And so that it would be for better understanding, not only for me, but for viewers, about how everything could start and how also you can handle situations.
Right.
Because at the same time, I feel like you have to be very smart about how you handle them.
Yeah,
that's
you have
right.
to speak up, but at the same time, you can't lose your ground.
Absolutely.
You have to use your education
Right.
to be able to get through that and come out happy at the end, because that's what the end point is. You want to find happiness and feel proud of yourself without losing respect for anybody, and especially for yourself.
There's a balancing act. But sometimes what's balanced over here an hour later is not the same balance that you need to take over here. And you're constantly having to reassess things. And I think what we need to understand, I mean, it's really remarkable that you have 3 women sitting here and 2 have filed lawsuits just to not be bullied. And I guess I had not considered that.
This was about my looks and appearance, age, which completely illegal.
Right.
Now, that could also go from one woman to another.
Absolutely.
I mean, that
absolutely.
So it's speaking for yourself.
Absolutely.
In different ways, not just necessarily against men, but stand up for yourself when
Period.
you know you're right.
Period. Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's men. I'm saying it might be the bigger voice.
Yeah.
The community
culture.
voice, the culture,
Culture is definitely one.
the flavor of the time. But why would, what Patty's saying is, why would she not have said something? Why would she have tolerated that?
So why did you tolerate that?
I think the fear. Fear. I think I was a fear of being the bad girl, of not getting along, of not that, and I wasn't even aware it's subconscious. I think you grow up being the nice girl, and at least for me, my personal experience was, no digas esto, no, tienes que, you have to be like being nice. And now I've come to understand that nice is performative. I'm when someone's pretending to be nice, I'm kind and I'm compassionate, but I'm going to speak my mind. I've found my voice. And I think it's a process.
It's a process.
It is a process because we're always growing and learning. But I think in my 30s it started. And then we had a female manager actually who oversaw, and she created a culture of that.
Yeah.
But I had to look at myself, always it's me. And then I went to a point where I was too aggressive and I had to find a middle ground. You're right about that. And now I do look at things and tell me if you all agree with this, is this worth my energy and my time? Because some things, silence is better.
Right.
Silence and just turning your head.
Well, you become more discerning as you
Yes.
get older. They call it wisdom.
Yes.
You're like, okay, that's not a fight I care about.
Yeah,
Or
pick your
it-
battles.
Right.
Yes,
Or
yes.
sometimes you just want to like laugh it off.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, okay. And then other times you're like, okay, well, we're going to have to rumble over this.
Yes.
Especially, in the courtroom setting
Oh.
or a job setting. But I think if I had children, but especially daughters, because I do think women get attacked for their appearance.
That's right.
As well as their performance, their intelligence, their education, or lack thereof, or whatever. I would say that be prepared when you go into life, especially the workforce. Be prepared to lose everything. Because they can take everything away from you. They can take away your job. They can take away your license. If you have a license, I have a license. They can take away, if you have children. They can take away your children if you have children. They can take your property away. They can take your money away. They can take your freedom away. They can put you in jail. I've been threatened with jail. They can take everything away, but they cannot take away your education. They can even take away your degrees. People have been stripped of their degrees. But the education, that's in you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an education, you're going to have a sense of balance and center and hopefully possibilities to get yourself out of whatever situation that you're in. But I think that when you're in the workplace, I was living my life. I think the other problem is you feel like, well, what am I supposed to do about this? And who's going to help me? Can I fight this alone? And then how do I fight it alone? So you also need friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely alliances. In the courtroom, and you were talking about this when we got here, you said when you first started out as an attorney, as a female, you would let males take the lead because...
Well, they know better.
Talk about that.
So I was brand new in private practice, and I had a client, and there were 2 male attorneys, and they each had a client. So we were 3 going to trial together in this federal drug conspiracy case. And one was older and definitely more experienced, and one was about my age with the same amount of experience. But I just thought, oh, they know more than I do. I really did think that. And I will defer to them, and I would say, hey, we should ask this and we should ask that question. Oh, we'll just argue that at the end. We'll just bring it up in closing argument. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound right. And then I just started asking the questions that I felt needed to be asked. And when I got to the end of the trial and my client was acquitted, and the first guy's client wasn't acquitted, and the second guy's client was acquitted, he was acquitted as well, I thought, why was I deferring?
What made you think that you were not right?
I don't know. I think it just goes back to that feeling when you're back in grade school, and I went to a co-ed grade school, and you're like, well, should I really raise my hand? And Tommy might think I'm dumb, and Billy might think we've already heard this answer. I think we do instinctively feel that. And my mother never taught me to feel that way.
See,
but
that's interesting that you're saying that. I grew up in a family with a dad, a mom, and all sisters.
Mm-hmm.
My father had all brothers. He never had sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So he always instilled that in us.
Mm-hmm.
You will be able to do
Mm-hmm.
what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
I never had sisters, but you will be able to do that.
Right.
From changing a tire for a car if there's an accident.
That's a great skill to have.
That is a great skill to have.
To, low pressure tire, you have to know certain things because
right.
you don't know.
Yeah.
You're always going to have a man by your side
Right.
to help you.
Right.
Always.
And you're very self-sufficient. You're very...
You have to, if I can go horseback riding, you can too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you cannot do. And he always raised us like that.
So did you ever feel, maybe I shouldn't raise my hand, maybe, you worked in the newsroom, maybe the male reporter would be better at this story than me?
Maybe I want to say because I was raised like that, I never have felt that.
Okay, that's
like he was
great.
always very supportive about that.
Mm-hmm.
But because he grew up in a male dominant environment, never sisters around. So it was for him very different also to now raise girls. So, we would do everything. Let's go and learn how to shoot guns at the ranch. Let's
Right.
go, horseback riding. Let's go skiing. Let's go stuff that maybe
Well, what were your domestic chores?
at home, you mean?
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, I helped with everything from making beds to cooking to growing up in college. I remember we had 2 sisters younger than me, and we all had a day where I would cook dinner for everybody. My second sister had another day. You know, everybody did
Shared.
a little bit of everything. You know, and it was always pushed like that to help and be part of that family, so that everybody felt, I guess, important and the same. You know,
That's interesting. I definitely can harken back to as late as my mid 30s or early 30s, where I'm like, oh, the boy knows more. And I couldn't say where that comes from, because certainly I didn't have parents who raised me that way.
Yeah.
But I do remember feeling somewhat liberated from that when I went to a girls' high school.
yes.
And when I went to a girls' high school, I'm like, oh my God, these girls, they just do what they want and say what they want, and they're so uninhibited, and this is really interesting. And so that was a process too. And then I went to a women's college in New York City, and that was even more mind-blowing. And there was new construction going on campus, and next thing I know, my classmates are picketing, and well, they're picketing because there aren't enough females on the construction crew. And it never occurred to me that women would be on a construction crew. But they were right. Why should they have a construction crew that doesn't have any women building a building at a female college? I'm sure that there are female construction workers in New York City who need work. So then you're like, well, how come I never thought of that before? So it just seems like the smarter you get, the more you realize how dumb you are. Like, what have I been doing with my life? Why haven't I been thinking about these things?
Absolutely. And why haven't I think that self-awareness, it comes with experiences that you go through, and for me it was, okay, I keep going through this thing, this situation, this, and I'm feeling this, but I'm the common denominator in all of this. So who I need to change is me, because I
Right.
can't change the people outside of me.
Right.
And I started looking at that. Well, what is the problem? Well, you're afraid to speak up. Well, and fear can be paralyzing.
Yes.
You know, so the big thing was speaking up for me in the workplace, and not just in news and other elements. Now I speak up, and there's tactful ways to speak up.
Right. Well, what was the reaction?
When I first did,
Yes.
I personally, I would go back with, did I do the right thing? Did I say the right
Of
thing? A
course.
lot of guilt, a lot of, oh my God, I'm not going to get that, pushing through that need for approval outside
Right.
of myself.
Or you might get tarred and feathered.
That one too, you talked about being ostracized,
Right.
that fear of not being included. And now, because you see it now, I mean, I'm going to be 50. Women still behave this way in the little groups and the cliques. Some women are still very much in middle school. And now I don't care. If I'm in, I'm out, I do not care. You like me, you don't, I like me.
Right.
And those who know me, those who don't. But it does take for experience for me, being okay with being disliked, criticized, being okay with someone hate it, because people throw hate, like you said. Being okay with someone hating you, because I realize that whatever they're spewing is about them, not about me. So not personalizing things. Those are huge lessons for me as I've gone through this journey, and maybe it's the wisdom of, like you said, almost turning 50. And some people are not going to, especially with what we do publicly. You're a criminal defense attorney. You've taken some big profile cases. We're doing this new project. Right. There's always someone who's going to criticize, especially for appearance. You nailed that, how we look, our hair, and now I'm like, thank you. I said this to Karina when we started this project. I don't take advice or criticism from someone who's not being brave in their own life. But thank you. That's a Brene Brown quote. That's a Brene Brown quote.
Or even paying your light bill.
Amen.
Like, you don't pay my light bill, I pay my light
That's
bill.
right.
And I've been paying my light bill for 30 something years now. I think you don't have standing to tell me whatever.
That's right.
And I'm going to go and I'm going to do what I need to do, usually for my client, and follow a course that I think will protect my client, or as best as I can protect my client. But, you know, we were talking also, like, I've noticed when they say, well, you've come a long way, baby. But have we come a long way? Because law schools are graduating large percentages of women. You know, a lot of times more than 50% of the graduating class is women. Except I look around me and I don't see any women doing, or they're not solo practitioners doing criminal defense work. They park themselves, the DA's office or the public defender's office or the U.S. Attorney's office or the county attorney's office. And so they're very female heavy, but out here swinging from the trees like Tarzan, and you know, I kill what I eat. There are a few of us.
Yes.
There are definitely a few of us, a handful. But why? Why are the women not coming and being your own boss?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm my own boss. And like, why are they just staying in government work? And I think that also, it just becomes another follow policy, follow the rules,
Yes.
follow the orders.
Someone telling me what to do and when to do it. And I know what you're talking about, because this is the show is about. Like, we have this experience that we've built up. And I thought, I don't want to work for someone anymore. I don't
Right.
want everyone telling me what I can say, what I can't say, what I get to talk about, what I don't. I have a voice,
Who
I have
you
an opinion.
interview, whom you
yes,
don't.
and we can disagree. We're but I respect it. But we get to come up with things that, for me, I'm very passionate about. And this one was one that the banner I wave, like, speak up for yourself. And I mentor some younger girls in different capacities. And one of the things that I tell them, from my own experience, speak up for yourself. Set a boundary early. You'll never regret that. There's tactful ways, because you don't want to tell someone to go fuck off, which I have done. But I want advice from you on tactful ways, because you're very good at setting boundaries. I've watched you. I've watched setting boundaries, and when you want
You think I'm good at setting boundaries?
well, you're
Oh
very
my God.
good. Here's what I've observed. Because you're a criminal defense attorney, you question back. I feel like when someone comes at you with a question, it's an aggression. And so when you set that boundary and you turn it around and go, okay, well, let me question you.
Yeah. Well, when I have to pick jury panels,
Yes.
and because of positions that I've taken in the larger community in the past, I actually come across groups of people who have very strong opinions about me. And I'm trying to pick this jury for my client. And then so what I learned to do is I don't really care if the jurors like me or not. And what I want to know is if they can be fair, and if I can draw out that they personally don't like me, then I can get rid of them and get them off the panel.
Because they'll be biased. Yeah.
They're going to be biased. And normally people like that are going to be biased anyway against an accused person.
Yes.
They're usually hanging jurors. So basically what I do is like, okay, you know, I've taken these positions that have been very controversial for whatever reason, and there are people out there who have strong opinions about me. I'm not asking the ones who are my fans. I'm talking in particular to the people who do not like Theresa Caballero. Let's talk about that. And then you get people coming forward, and sometimes they're really aggressive. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like you, I've seen you on TV and this and that. And I'm like, okay, so have we ever met? No. Do you know me personally? No. But you have all these notions about me. Yes. And therefore you can't be fair to my client. Well, no. And thank you, sir. I appreciate that. You're now off the jury, and that is the point of this exercise, and you're being fair to my client. And I really want to thank you for that. So if that's an example of being tactful.
Absolutely it is.
Oh,
You handle
no.
it. I mean,
Class and education. Yes.
So I do what I have to for my client. You deal with adversity, and really, reputation. We're talking about reputation, and you talk about a female thing. Oh, as a girl, you better have a good reputation. Growing up, you better have a good reputation. Well, I learned all of a sudden one day I woke up and I had this terrible reputation.
for speaking up.
And I'm like, what did I do? And I realize I look at it so differently now, because reputation is just gossip.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's how people know you. Oh, I heard she is. The word is she is. So reputation is just based in gossip. So I just now find reputation is, it can be a real thing, or it can just be malicious, false gossip and presentation of a person. So I would tell women who are following what they believe to be true and right and real, don't worry so much about reputation, because the powers that be can give you the reputation they want you to have, whether it's true or not.
Now, what would you tell a family that is starting to raise their children?
Mm-hmm.
Not only women, but men.
Mm-hmm.
How should you raise up your kids to learn to always be able to stand for themselves in a positive way?
Well, I think that just goes back to what you learn when you're 5 years old. And I remember when I was 5 years old and I went off to school, and I remember this, my mother said, if anybody hits you, you hit him back. And if you get into a fight with a boy and it gets really rough, you hit him between the legs. I didn't know what that meant, but you kick him between the legs. So it was a good lesson, because it doesn't matter where the fight is, you need to, protect yourself.
Absolutely.
And maybe it's not kicking them between the legs, maybe it's filing a lawsuit. Maybe it's, going
Metaphorically,
and speaking to them.
yes.
Maybe it's whatever. But you do need to protect yourself. But I think I don't have children, and but I think if I were raising children, I think the most important thing, of course, is you want them to be decent human beings.
Absolutely.
And there's always the golden rule: do unto others as you would have done unto
That's
yourself.
right.
And so, but it's not always just so rosy out there. So start with the golden rule, and then when Johnny wants to start a fight, and it's a fight that you need to engage in, not every duel needs to be accepted, then you need to have the tools to fight back. And and I don't really care what profession you're in. If you don't have the courage of your convictions, how are you going to do right? As a journalist, as a lawyer, as a doctor, as a teacher, as a construction worker. They can tell the construction worker, you need to mix more water in that cement and dilute it. Well, that'll make the building weak. Why would I do that? Because you're not going to have a job tomorrow. I think I won't have a job tomorrow then, because I'm not going to participate in laying a weak foundation for
That's
this
right.
building. I mean, whatever the job is,
Absolutely.
you need to do it right, and you need to be like, oh, I don't want to hurt anybody.
And that comes down to integrity, and you're right, the courage of your convictions, and sometimes sticking your neck out and going against the grain. But it does take courage. And I want to circle back to what you were saying in the beginning, that lady when you were first getting attacked, and she said the other woman who stood by you and said, I'm going to help you and we're going to file a lawsuit, and it was two women. Because I want to encourage more women to support other women. Now, like I said, we all have our backgrounds. I can respect you and we can disagree. But I find, and tell me what you think, Karina, that a lot of the times that us, like we see it in social circles and professional circles, the mean girl thing.
Yeah, the mean girl thing.
That still happens. And I'm just thinking, no, I'm not going to buy into that. I'm not going to be mean
Right.
to somebody just because somebody told me that they were mean, and I'm
Right.
not. I'm not. I'll deal with you how you treat me. Now, if you treat me rudely, oh, you better believe I'm gonna get in your face.
Right.
Well, I'll try not to, but I've learned to set boundaries.
If you just listen to conversations, how people talk,
That's right.
and I never know anything that's going on at the courthouse. And I will get a call from someone who doesn't work anywhere near the courthouse. Oh, did you hear this or did you hear that? And I'm like, how come I never hear anything? And I never hear anything because I'm not receptive. I understand that. The truth is, I'm like, why are you talking about that person like that? Or really? Do you really think that's important? But years ago, and this is what I mean by, and you're talking about mean girl. there was this very nice young prosecutor who was from out of town, and she'd taken a job here, and she'd gotten divorced. And I didn't really know her other than we had a few dealings with each other. And all these male attorneys, and back then it was mostly male, and they were standing around laughing and calling her all these names. She wasn't within earshot, but, you know, she's such a hussy, she's such a slut, she's such a whatever. And I'm like, why would you say that? Oh, her ex-husband left these photographs back in the olden days when we actually had glossy photographs.
Yeah.
Photographs in the different witness rooms around the courthouse of her naked on a bearskin rug. And I go, so let me get this straight. This was a picture that he took of his wife when they were married. Now they're divorced. He's come to town for the purpose of spreading these images around about her, and she's the slut. She's the wrong one. She is. Oh, you know, Theresa, you're just, you know, you're so ornery. And I'm like, you know, you're really horrible. Why don't you just shut up about her? And the bad one, the bad actor here, is the ex-husband. And I went to her and I said, I'm telling you this because I'm sure you know that it happened, that people are talking, and I just want you to know that you have a friend. I'm your friend. It's wrong. You've been wronged. You've been hurt. I wish I could fix it, but I just wanted to tell you that. I think even the little things like that, like what you did for me 20-something years ago, was so meaningful to me, because at that point, at that juncture, you're just really alone. And you feel targeted.
That's right.
And someone reaching out and saying, you know, come on, I want to interview you. Or don't pay any attention to that. Or that can be very important.
Finding comfort.
Yes.
And someone who understands the human in this, you know, the human quality of it, and understanding and support and seeing you as a human as opposed to, like you said, reputation. And that, you frame that so, it blew my mind, because you're right, it is gossip.
It's
and
just
what
gossip.
Well, I mean, I learned something today.
Just gossip.
I was so happy. I knew I wanted to sit down with you, and I wanted me and Karina just to this conversation, because it's so important, it's so critical, and if it helps one person who listens to this, it's you know, we change a life, and someone finding their voice. I think I found it a little, you know, you were raised by, you know, so I think impressive that you had that mom and dad. I did not, so I had to go through trial and error and falling down to find that voice, and a little bit later. And so
And you didn't have a patron.
No, I had no.
Patrons are
Now, don't feel
really
sorry for me, because I'm
important.
very strong. Absolutely.
No.
That's what made her now what she is.
If you don't have, like, if you're an artist, you need a patron.
Yeah.
If you are a woman and you want to really climb to high heights, it really helps to have a patron. But most of us don't have patrons.
Yeah.
And so we have to find our own way. But if you can find a patron, that's great. That's, you know, really great.
Well, thanks, Theresa, for coming out and hanging out with us, and just
Thank
sharing your
you
knowledge, your
so
experience, and being
much.
so open and vulnerable. And you know, for anyone who doesn't know you, has never. But first of all, you're brilliant, but also on a personal level, you're the loveliest person.
Thank you so much.
And so I wanted to shed this part of you. So.
And so we are actually friends. And
Yes.
so we knew each other first professionally, but we are actually really good
Friends.
friends.
Yeah,
And I appreciate the invitation and the time, and the warm conversation.
And if you ever need a criminal defense attorney, knock on wood. I don't ever want one. She's who you hired.
Crime
In
does
Texas.
pay.
Crime does pay.
pay.
Thank you. Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.